Do you want to just record an intro right now with the two of us?
Yeah, sure.
All right. You want to chair that, or you want me to do it?
You could do it and I can chime in.
Okay. Let's see how that goes. All right. Coming up on the show, Fingers and I discuss my week at the DNC.
Any violence?
Just a little bit. I got some minor cuts and bruises.
Didn't hear that in the mainstream media.
No. It was unity, unity, unity.
Hillary Clinton's speech. We talk about that.
Yeah, that was huge. Not robotic in the least.
She loves balloons. So does her husband, who fell asleep during the speech. We'll talk about that.
Jill Stein has now taken the helm of the Bernie movement, and we hope she takes a huge chunk of his followers along with her.
A true revolutionary, Jill Stein.
She really is. She's down with the rabble.
Gary Johnson.
Epic
We'll talk
failure.
about. Yeah. What are we going to do? Who are we going to vote for?
Tough call.
Anything else?
No, if you want to subscribe, you can do so on iTunes. While you're there, leave us a 5-star review and just dash off a quick little note about how excited you are each week when a new episode appears in your feed. If you're not an Apple user, you can find us on Stitcher or TuneIn or SoundCloud. You can check us out on Facebook at Enough Already Podcast. And if you forget all of those, you can find everything Enough Already Podcast at EnoughAlreadyPodcast.com.
All right, enough already. Let's start the show. And we're recording.
Fabulous.
It's exciting.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you were all over the place in Philadelphia for the Democratic National Convention, except you weren't in the building itself.
I was everywhere but inside.
Tell me what happened.
Well, as I was saying to you, anybody that was on the ground there is furious about the coverage coming out because it's so disingenuous.
How so?
Unity, this echoing of that word over and over and over again is such a filthy lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was right in the middle of the protests for days, and they weren't, two people standing around, which is what I'm told the protests looked like in our favorite town in the United States, Cleveland, Ohio, where there were more press at any given protest than there were protesters.
Right.
I mean, Philly was pretty nuts.
And a lot of that, a lot of the protesters that were out in the streets were actually Bernie Sanders delegates who felt like they were slighted for a number of reasons by the DNC. Mm-hmm. Where in Cleveland, there were protests, but these were outsiders coming in. No, in Philadelphia, a lot of these people were Bernie delegates.
Correct. There was a protest.
Whoa, what happened?
What?
Is there an earthquake?
No, I just put my cup of coffee down.
Oh, wow.
Ah.
Okay. Anyway, back to the protest.
So there was a protest on Wednesday hosted by Black Men for Bernie. And they invited Bernie delegates to come up and speak. So up on Breitbart, there's a montage of them talking and, the revolution will continue and all this. There's a lot of that. Mm-hmm. So I came away from there believing that the Never Hillary movement has a lot more people in it than the Never Trump movement.
Oh, no, that's not true. If you look at the mainstream media's coverage, everything was put to bed, and Hillary united the party with that wonderful speech she gave Thursday night. She's a gifted orator.
I'm going to tell you that as her speech was wrapping up, they were burning American flags out on Broad Street right outside. So, I mean, there is an interesting thing that goes on that I don't think is reported. And I noticed this when I went to the Occupy National Gathering. I can't remember if that was 2013 or 2014, but they had what they called their NatGat in Philly. So, you know, anytime there's a leftist mob crowd within 20 minutes driving of me, I have to go check it out.
Absolutely.
So I went down, and I noticed then that there were two factions inside of this group. There's the legitimate peace, love, you know, no violence, kind of hippie types that are having drum circles and things like this, and they reek of patchouli. And then there are the hardcore commie anarchists. They're usually wearing black head to toe. They've got their faces covered. And there was a schism there where those guys, the commie anarchists, wanted violence. They wanted to fight cops. They wanted to start shit. And the hippies were there begging them not to. So we saw that same thing happen on Thursday night outside of the one security gate where the delegates were coming in and out. So the deal was the peaceful ones were waiting for the Bernie delegates who were supposed to walk out Thursday night during Hillary's speech. They were supposed to come out, join them, the peace hippies, and then they were all going to walk over to FDR Park, which is directly across the street from the First Union Center where this all took place. Or it's not the first, whatever it's called now. Wells Fargo Center. One bank to another. You know, we hate banks.
That's right.
So there's FDR Park is right across the street. It's a gigantic park, and there's stages in there that are practical. They're there all the time, big stone structures. So the deal was they were supposed to walk over with the hippies. Jill Stein was going to speak. They were going to have their little Dem exit party where they were going to denounce the Democrat Party. If they have their registration cards on them, throw them in a coffin that they were carrying around all week that had donkeys painted on it. So it had donkeys on their backs with their legs straight up. It was quite expertly done. There's a bunch of photos of it because they were literally, I saw it on Monday and then it was still around on Thursday in good shape. But the delegates never appeared. But they kept giving updates over the bullhorns. They had people on the inside. So they would say, okay, the delegates are coming out. You know, they do the mic check crap where everybody then repeats everything, which is so annoying. It's really annoying, especially if you're standing next to the bullhorn because it takes forever to disseminate information in that fashion.
Yes.
So it's like mic check, and then everybody has to yell mic check. We've just got word that the delegates. So they said, we just got word the delegates are coming out. Here's what we're going to do. We're going.
It really is the Borg.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
I've never seen that, but yeah. I've heard it referenced enough that I assume that there's some validity to that comparison. So the peace guys say, okay, they're going to come out. We're going to stick together. We're not going to there's going to be no violence. This is a peaceful protest. We're going to peacefully march over to the park. We're going to peacefully do it. And within 30 seconds of wrapping up that whole mic check business, the radical commie anarchists bust off to their own little group and go for the fence. and they were really dumb about this because where we were standing at that point was the actual fencing for the parking lot of Citizens Bank Park, which is where the Phillies play. So it's these giant like wrought iron gates that are 10, 11 feet tall, whereas the fencing they had thrown up for the DNC was just like cages. And if you looked at them from an engineering point of view, all you would have to do is lift up about 6 inches. It was just a pin that was holding them together with not a lock on it. So they never figured this out. The whole time I'm like, they're going to figure this out, right? I figured it out within 30 seconds of being there, just looking at the structure and saying, this isn't going to hold if these geniuses decide just to lift up. But were
they trying to get rid of the fence by building a bridge?
No.
No? Oh.
No, they didn't.
I thought we were supposed to build bridges, not fences.
I know. No, but I did hear a couple chants of Hillary Clinton tear down this wall. But so yeah. they're not happy. But so the most frequently heard chants outside, which I assume you won't hear unless you watch some of the live streams, was hell no DNC, we won't vote for Hillary. Jill, not Hill, because Jill Stein, God love her, is a legit revolutionary. She believes what Bernie believes. Well, she believes what Bernie claims to believe.
Yeah, not much of a revolutionary, that Bernie Sanders.
No.
Claimed to be a revolutionary.
I've
but
never seen a more weakling Democrat socialist revolutionary in my life. If you look at South America, most of those guys have gone to jail for trying to overthrow their government.
You know, and we should have known this going back to that Seattle speech where those two ladies just ripped the microphone out of his hands and he didn't do anything about it, or he didn't have anyone there to do something about it.
No, that kind of is in line with the socialist revolutionaries because it's for the people, right? So you have to give the people the mic. I knew he was a fraud when he said no one gives a damn about your emails. He should have pounded that home and gone after Hillary with everything he had. And
that's not fair because you know darn well if situations were reversed, Hillary never would have gone after Bernie's emails.
But she doesn't claim to be leading a revolution. There's a huge difference.
Well, there's that.
You know, just study any socialist revolutionary and you'll know that he doesn't fit in that pantheon. Not even close. So he's inside in the air conditioning in the box and Jill Stein's out on the street giving speeches, marching with protesters, you know, and saying it was not about a man, it's about a movement, and I'm ready to lead that movement. And I mean, she's even nuttier than he is. I attended one of her speeches on Monday, and she's warning the crowd, you know, climate change is, of course, the number one threat. We're going to be under 9 feet of water. I don't remember what the timeline was on that.
Next week?
It could be. It really could. It could happen. So, I mean, she's free everything.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to forgive all the student debt, free childcare, free, you know, paid leave. It's totally fine. It can happen. We just have to have the will to do it and shut down the oil wells.
Oh, thank God.
Give away windmills and solar panels to everyone. I'm making that part up, but.
Oh, but it's probably true.
Oh, sure. I mean, she doesn't stand a chance, but I will continue to tell all of my friends that liked Bernie Sanders about her. And she's picked up a point, I think, in the polls over the past week. It's just a name recognition problem for her. But looking at her versus Gary Johnson, I think Gary was there, but I think he spent the whole 4 days in the arena instead of out in the streets trying to convert people and say, you guys got screwed over.
He should have been out there. I could see Governor Weld out there in a tie-dye walking around mingling with the people.
Yeah, why not? I mean, they could have been out there taking advantage of the fact that Philadelphia has decriminalized marijuana possession and talk to them on that level. But no, they're nowhere to be found. They're comfortable inside and not out amongst the rabble.
Because they're Republicans.
I know this.
Oh, my gosh. And everyone this week who is looking for an alternative to Trump and Hillary on the right, they're freaking out over comments made by Governor Weld about Supreme Court justices. And once again, and you're seeing this in the I've seen several libertarians that have backed away in the last week saying, you know, I don't even know if I can vote for Gary Johnson anymore.
Yeah, the guy's not a libertarian. It's pretty cut and dry. And if you want to see government come to a complete standstill and not do anything for 4 years, then you should probably be voting for Trump. I mean, that's how I look at it. It's just like if you want a complete standoff, that's the way to go.
Well, yeah. I just, you know, and this week the comments made regarding the father of the soldier that was killed in was it Iraq or Afghanistan? I'll be honest, I haven't been paying a lot of attention to what's been going on lately. It used to be back in the day I would criticize low information voters not being able to understand how they, you know, don't pay attention to the daily grind of politics and current events. Now I'm starting to think they're the smart ones. Just bury your head in the sand 2 days before the election. maybe do a little research and make a decision. But the daily grind of an election season, especially this one, where Trump doesn't think things through. He just shoots from the hip. And I don't know the guy's name. He's Muslim, and he went after Khan. Yes. A true politician would have figured out a way to gracefully step out of that, and this wouldn't even be a story right now. But he's not wired. He's not wired that way. He's got, if somebody attacks him, he has to attack no matter who it is.
Sure, but this will be over by Tuesday. You can't get sucked into this getting upset. Oh my God, Trump said something again.
I'm not upset by it. It's just I just listen to the things he says and think to myself, oh my God, you have never run for office, Tracy.
Correct.
I've never run for office. But I see that on stage, and, I just say, if anybody asks me, he's a grieving father. I'm not going to debate him publicly on what happened to, his son, or, I'm not going to get into any kind of public argument with this man. God bless him and his family. And then you move on.
No, I can see that too. But you could also say, and I've seen this point made, and maybe he should make it, is that I didn't vote for the war that killed your son, sir. But the woman whose stage you graced, she did.
Right.
And we're seeing more media hypocrisy. They did nothing to cover Patti Smith, who spoke the first night at the RNC, whose son was killed in Benghazi, that Hillary straight up lied to. And now she's lying about that, calling Pat Smith and the other families liars when they say she told them it was the video and then she was going to get the video maker and all this stuff.
Yeah, how do you get confused by the words that came out of her mouth? In a situation like that, I can't imagine what it's like to lose a child. It's got to be absolutely horrible, and you probably remember almost everything that happened in that whole situation. There's no misremembering what she said.
No, and the other thing, and I mean, this is anecdotal, of course, but I can't remember whose father it was. If it was Tyrone Woods' father, I had seen him months ago when 13 Hours came out. Megyn Kelly had him on. So it was the father and the brother. And I think it was Woods's. And the father keeps something similar to what I do, which is like a 5-year journal. Mm-hmm. And he had written, he brought it with him and he showed, like, that day, he said, Secretary Clinton told us that this was the result of a video, all this stuff. And it's just like, really, did that guy go back and doctor that? So you've got at least 2 of the 4 families saying this is exactly what she told us. And the other 2 haven't contradicted them.
Well, and then she spoke publicly at the memorial service and basically said the same thing.
Right. But
this is ridiculous.
It's all, don't believe your lying eyes. Even if your lying eyes saw something come out of our mouths, that's not what happened. No, it's sick. This is the reality versus the unreality election.
Yeah.
So I think this Khan thing will blow over in a matter of hours. Julian Assange was out this morning. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
On CNN's New Day this morning, saying there's more stuff coming. And the WikiLeaks was talked about quite a bit in the crowds at the DNC.
Oh, there were banners during speeches being dropped that said WikiLeaks. But I wonder, the mainstream media is doing everything it can to, brush these stories aside. There was a big, build up to WikiLeaks releasing voicemails. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see that hardly anywhere in the media. I don't even know what was said in those voicemails.
They were kind of lame. I mean, I didn't listen to all of them, but I read some transcripts. It was just voicemails at the DNC. Like people bitching. They were like some lady that gave $300 called in and left a voicemail, like furious that they were allowing Bernie Sanders to say such and such. And what are you going to do?
I just think it's hard to get a story out of an email dump like that when you've got 20. There's so much information there. And
I tried to go through it myself, and it's not organized in any way that make sense to somebody that doesn't already know things. Like, you can search it by email addresses. Mm-hmm. It's like, whose email address is? Like, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's email address is something really bizarre. It's some Gmail address that's like heartstrings or something like this. It's weird. So unless you know that, you can't search for those. So it's not just, here it is chronologically, all 20,000 emails, have at it. It's, you have to go in and put in search terms.
Yeah.
So,
This is a textbook case of media bias. If you would have had at the beginning of the Republican National Convention, Reince Priebus step down.
Oh, sure.
The first night of the convention, if you would have had the kind of walkout that they had at the DNC, they covered a lot of the walkout at the RNC. I mean, you saw, fortunately, someone caught Ken Cuccinelli on camera raising his credentials up in the air and throwing them down on the floor and walking out. I saw that. You didn't see much regarding the Bernie Sanders people walking out and having primetime speeches the first night given to a half-empty arena.
Yeah. No, you had to count on people like Josh Fox, who's the guy that made Gasland, lighting people's tap water on fire and fracking's going to kill us all.
Yes.
I guess he was a delegate from California, and he went up he put out a video from his phone. I don't know if he periscoped it, but he showed all the empty seats and was like, people got up and walked. And it was a huge chunk of people. But that goes unreported, and then Thursday night, the Bernie guys wore glow-in-the-dark T-shirts to show that they were protesting, and they didn't show that piece of the crowd, is my understanding. And they had sent out marching orders to all the Hillary delegates, if anybody starts heckling, just start chanting Hillary over them. So I had heard throughout
and
the
isn't
speech that's getting interrupted by people chanting Hillary at weird times.
And again, that's even creepy because when stuff like that happens at a Republican National Convention, people start chanting USA, USA, and they have to chant Hillary, Hillary.
Well, it's such a cult of personality. I mean, you saw the article with all of them crying.
Yes.
I don't remember seeing any tear. Maybe when the families on the first night of the RNC were talking, families that had lost loved ones either in Benghazi or to violence spilling over our borders, those kind of things. Those are stories where I expect to pay into the crowd and maybe see some tears. But tears for politicians? It's so grotesque.
It's creepy.
Yes, I feel like I'm watching the 700 Club. And someone's just, gotten up and walked for the first time.
I remember taking my daughter when she was 7 to a Big Time Rush concert. Uh-huh. And there were 7, 8-year-old kids crying as Big Time Rush, hit the stage. And I can understand that. I can't understand weeping over a politician.
No, it's really frightening.
But a couple of observations from the Democratic National Convention. One, someone needs to consult these politicians, and Hillary's one of the worst at it. When the speech is over, the pointing to the crowd and acting like you see someone you know. The eyes, oh, hey! She has no idea who that person is.
Well, even
everybody knows it.
Don't act surprised that they're there.
Right.
That's all. That's the super disingenuous part to me. Oh my God, you're here? Imagine that. Just like waving, to Tim Kaine. Oh,
yeah.
What a shock.
If Melania Trump fell asleep during Donald's speech,
oh yeah,
it would be all over the place. Meanwhile, you have Bill, who was in a coma for 3/4 of that speech. You can only rely on right-wing media to see that.
Of course.
And then finally, the balloon drop was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life at a political convention.
Hillary feigning surprise.
Yeah. It's almost like she can unhinge her jaw.
Yeah, it's gross. She's very snake-like.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just bizarre. The whole thing is just strange. Her and her face in the him playing with the balloons, and he fell asleep during the speech. Nobody's mocking. Are you telling me if Donald Trump made a face like that as the balloons dropped, it wouldn't be on Saturday Night Live?
Oh, it would be. You have to remember the double standard is in full effect now.
Yeah.
And they're going to do whatever they can, especially seeing that I think it was the LA Times today they have been tracking all the polls. So they were like, the Drudge headline is something like shock poll. Clinton only led one day in the entire month of July.
Right.
So we've got Reuters, weighting their polls in her favor, which our friend Pat Cadell exposed. And I did get to see Pat very briefly at the convention. He rolled into the suite where we were up late, decompressing, having a few cocktails.
Yeah.
He rolls in at about 2:30 in the morning.
Gosh.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. God love him. But he was just absolutely furious with the way that the press is reporting what's going on, because he was in the hall seeing all this stuff, and it's just mind blown. Like you were saying, I mean, Debbie Wasserman Schultz gets ousted on the eve, and then they put in Donna Brazile. And I'm not sure if you saw that Donna Brazile was also implicated in those WikiLeaks. So she was talking smack. So I rode the train down on Monday, which was a gigantic mistake.
Yeah.
Because if you'll remember, I had found the article saying, oh, hey, like a third of the new trains they bought have to be taken out of service because there's some serious failures on them that they can't fix. We don't really know what it is, but it's like the coupling or something like that. Like basically the train could just fall apart at any moment. A third of the fleet could just, boom, done, massive crashes, everybody dies, we love it. Philly is the home of that big Amtrak crash a year and a half ago. But so I'm riding the train down, and other people on my train are, of course, going to the convention as well. So I notice a bunch of people that look like they're going to a Fish concert, which isn't surprising. And I kind of looked like that, too, because I want to blend. But they had these bright neon green baseball hats. And I couldn't tell what they said on them, but I found out later it was the National Lawyers Guild, which is a lefty legal arm, right? So they were going there to protect any protesters that got arrested.
Okay.
So if you see any footage, look for the guys in the green hats, because any time that there was police movement, they were right in there. And it's amazing to me because these are all attorneys, and they all looked either homeless or like they were on their way to a concert. This is how organized the left is. But so there was a group of them that didn't know each other that were meeting on the train that had come from New York, Boston, all over the place. And then there was a mother and a daughter sitting behind me. And the girl was probably in her early 20s. And they were chatting. They were Bernie people that were chatting, and they were kind of, sucking it up for Hillary, whatever. And they were talking about whether or not Debbie Wasserman Schultz was going to have any kind of a role and who was going to replace her. And I was like, so I can't help it. I have to start talking.
Yeah.
So I was nice. I was trying to play like I was on their team. So I said, Donna Brazile is stepping in. And they were like, oh, that's great. I said, is it? Because I had read the WikiLeaks email from her where she says, I'll cuss out Sanders peoples. And she worked for the Clintons. Right. She's a huge hack. She has no sympathy for Bernie and his people. So I said that to them, and they were like, no. Really? And I was like, yeah. You guys, the shaft is totally in. Like, you guys are toast. There's no way. And this was Monday, so they didn't know what Bernie was going to do. They were still under the false impression that he was a serious revolutionary and wouldn't sell out for a plane ride or whatever it was that he got.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so fun to just dispirit them. And then Monday night, I'm coming home on the train, and my train was an hour and 15 minutes late at 11 o'clock at night, because that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Heavy traffic time. So by the time it arrives, it's full of delegates and other people that had been there. So they're all holding their Michelle Obama signs. They're all keyed up. Mm. So I just sit and I listen. And the first conversation I overhear is this guy that works for a Danish newspaper that's now an American. He was originally from Denmark. And he does something else normally as a day job, but every 4 years he covers the conventions for this newspaper. And a woman, and I think she was a delegate, and she had a big Bernie pin on. But she was resigned to vote for Hillary because Trump is Hitler.
Yeah.
That sentence came out of her mouth. And so they were having a discussion about how annoyed they were. They had to have been probably, I would guess, like mid to late 40s, both of them.
Okay.
How annoyed they were with the younger people there and the younger Bernie people. So the gentleman is saying, you know, they were booing him. They were booing Hillary. They were throwing up a ruckus. And this was the California delegation specifically that got up and walked. And he wanted to talk to them and ask them like what they were doing because they booed Elijah Cummings. And he's like, do you know who that man is? Do you know what he did? And he said none of them knew who he was. They didn't care. They're so uninformed. Like, they don't get it. They've got to get in line and vote for Hillary, basically. So then this other gentleman pipes up, and he's like, I'm an academic, you know, and I have to deal with those kids all the time. They don't know who any of the civil rights leaders are. They have no respect. And all of a sudden, another kid pipes up that's a millennial wearing a Bernie hat. Mm-hmm. We know what we're talking about. We do our goddamn research. F you people. Like, what have they done for us? Nothing. Screw them. We don't owe them any respect. And I was like, popcorn, please. Tell me more about this unity of which you speak. This is delicious. Oh, my God. So I just had a ball. Just blending. And of course, I had to talk at a certain point. But I just dispirited that woman by saying Trump is going to win. You have no idea what you're talking about. She's just like, what? He's so awful. He's terrible. I said, how many people's deaths is he responsible for? She's like, I don't understand what you mean. And I was like, his body count versus Hillary. Go. Yeah. She's like, but he's a warmonger. Oh, really? Fascinating. You want to talk about the Honduran coup that she helped push along? Or you want to talk about Libya? What would you like to talk about? Where should we go with this, lady? Tell me more about how I should appreciate Lady Macbeth's and her peacefulness.
Listen, Hillary helps the poor. You don't understand. Look at all the great work she did in Haiti.
To the poor's money. Speaking of, have you had a chance to watch Clinton Cash yet?
No, I have not. I'm going to watch that today. It's amazing to me again how that's being completely ignored. The selection cycle. I haven't seen anyone. Was that book even reviewed by the New York Times?
I think that it actually was. And
it was?
I believe that Schweitzer has a big write-up in the Wall Street Journal today. He's done additional research. So he's, you know, they've been saying that this leak, the WikiLeaks DNC leak came from the Russians. Mm-hmm. And I actually read a really persuasive article about it that Justin Raimondo from antiwar.com wrote, explaining that it's almost impossible to tell where a hack comes from. Mm-hmm. And that there are cybersecurity firms that make their money by being like, oh, we figured it out. And he's like, no, unless they leave a trace, then you're never going to know. And it could have very well been leaked from somebody inside. But it's just funny now. Oh, it's the Russians. It's the Russians. It's the Russians, which is a really stupid line for them to push. If any of you have seen or read Clinton Cash, the Clintons did a hell of a lot to help the Russians.
Right.
To uranium rights. So, you know, and Trump's going out there and saying like, hey, if the Russians have the emails, we'd love to see them. I mean, it's tongue-in-cheek and flippant, but my God. And then they're like, oh, he's treasonous. You want to play that game? Holy crap. Did he sell off uranium rights, U.S. uranium rights to the Russians? Last I checked, no. I don't even know if he's ever met Putin. Meanwhile, she's off there with the misspelled reset button, or the poorly translated reset button. It's such a joke.
I think she's going to win.
I don't. I think she's going to get stomped. Like you said, nobody, I mean, even there, I couldn't find people that were hardcore Hillary.
At this point, I think that the strategy is going to, you cannot remake Hillary Clinton at this point. You can't. So it's going to be for 98 days, it's going to be a relentless attack on Trump, making him the next Adolf Hitler.
Sure.
It's going to be, we got to drive Trump's numbers down because there's no, do you see any way that either one of these candidates can get over 50% of the vote?
No, that's not going to happen.
I mean, I think we're looking at a 43-38, 42-40 election. And then, Jill Stein will pluck some people off. And of course, Johnson will, get a decent percentage of the vote. But I can't imagine this is going to be a, 52-47 election or something like that.
No, it's definitely not going to be with the four people in the race. So the question becomes now, do they let Stein and Johnson on the debate stage?
I don't think there's any way that Stein gets on the stage.
I don't think so either, but if I was Trump, I'd be pushing for it.
And I also get a sense, and I may be completely wrong on this, that if Johnson gets on the stage, he's going to attack Trump more than he's going to attack Hillary.
That's possible. Because, I mean, he has said that Hillary's a great public servant and stuff like this. Just insane things. But I have to tell you, Fingers, that your political hero was in the mix all 4 days of the DNC.
Oh?
One Mr. Vermin Supreme.
Nice.
And he was honestly the voice of reason in a lot of this. I'm not kidding you. That old boot on his head, he jumped in when people got out of control and was like, hey, let's calm down. Everybody stay calm. He didn't promise ponies or anything like that, but he did. He did kind of quell the anger at a couple times when it got really really tense.
Yeah, this is really people have been making comparisons between 2016 and 1968. And really, I think that one of the big differences is at least in 1968, the media pretended to be honest.
It's possible.
And pretended to be fair and balanced.
Well, and the other difference is you had Daley saying to the cops, crack skulls. Whereas in Philadelphia, I heard from multiple people that the police were basically given a stand down order. If you get hit, if you get spat on, anything like that, just let it roll off your back. They did not want police engagement because there really could have been. I mean, I saw a couple people get arrested, but I mean, it was bad.
Well, there were a couple of protesters in Philadelphia that actually lit themselves on fire, which is always hysterical.
Yes, and that was the media outlets are reporting it was a woman. It was a guy wearing a maxi skirt, so that's a skirt that comes down to your ankles. So it was a man, and he jumped on the fire and lit himself.
Wait a minute. A maxi skirt?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what a mini skirt is.
Yes.
So,
I've never heard of a maxi skirt before.
Well, now you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a skirt. It was just like a tapestry that he had tied around his legs. Basically. Some rudimentary garment that he had made.
And wasn't it like 120 degrees out there?
At night it was down in the 80s.
Ugh.
But during the day, I would imagine with a heat index, it was up over 100.
What do I know? Maybe that's comfortable in the heat.
It wasn't heavy material.
Yeah.
But it was fairly funny to watch it.
At any time while you were on the streets of Philadelphia during the DNC, did you feel threatened? Did you feel at all like you're really?
Yeah.
Did anyone get in your face asking you who you are, who you represent, that kind of thing?
Oh, sure.
What did you say?
I told them that I represent myself and to leave me the hell alone.
And did they back off?
Thankfully, I had security with me.
Yeah.
And there was at one point where security had to pick up a dude and remove him.
Really?
Yeah. He was not leaving us alone. So I was out with a Breitbart team that was there on the ground. Nobody has anything signifying that's who we're with. Like, there's not a bee in sight. There's none of that orange and white bee. Nothing. And what happened was the chick that was anchoring the live coverage, Jennifer Lawrence, who's a badass, that was totally happy to get in the mix with these fools. There was a group of Hasidic Jews that were there standing up for Hamas and other things, which is just mind-boggling.
Okay.
So
what a bizarro world.
It's crazy. So the bureau chief that Breitbart has in their Jerusalem office, I can't remember if he's in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, but his name is Aaron. I can't remember his last name now. I apologize to Aaron for that. But he had seen us on the live stream talking to them. So he came down. He was in downtown. And so he jumped in an Uber and came down to where we were and engaged them. And so there was a back and forth, and there were other people listening, and they got upset that he was saying, like, hey, do you think, he was just asking them a question, like, will you admit that Hamas is a terror organization? No.
Oh, good Lord.
And so there was a bystander that was watching this, and he got really upset because he was on the same side as these rabbis.
Someone invaded the safe space.
Right. So he starts, Breitbart is a white supremacist organization, and following us around. He followed us down the street and then was screaming at Jen when she was on camera. And she had engaged him a little bit. And at that point, I had it. And so I turned around to him and I just said, look, dude, you need to back off. Like, I don't know what point you're trying to make. Nobody's interested in what you have to say. And you should just really give this up because you're looking foolish. So he starts screaming at me, at which point I tell him I don't need to be mansplained to, nor will I allow the patriarchy to oppress me.
Oh, that must have really put him over the edge.
Well, that's what you do with these people, right? I mean, you have to just use their own stupidity against them. And he didn't like that too much. So our lovely security just kind of escorted him away from us, and he disappeared for the rest of the night. But then some of his friends started showing up that we'd seen before, and they just kind of always kept within about a 2-foot radius of us. So we just had to keep an eye out.
Wow.
And we did. We were fine. I mean, it's kind of creepy to be in a crowd that's, 300-400 people and just keep seeing the same people that have bandanas over their faces circling you like sharks. And you don't know what they're going to do, what they're
such pussies. They really are.
Yeah.
Why are you covering your face, dude?
Well, there's a reason, right?
Yeah, there's a reason. They're about to break the law.
But it really felt like at certain points there are 3 or 4 police helicopters circling overhead, all the chanting and stuff like this. I'm like, oh my God, we are in the middle of the American spring here. So it's scary. And I knew that the DNC was going to be worse than the RNC. I did think it would look a little bit more like Chicago. But I maintain that's because the cops were told to back off.
Wow.
And I was told that the police presence in Philadelphia was nothing compared to what Cleveland had. That in Cleveland, they had brought in cops from all over the country. And in Philadelphia, I don't think they did that. I think it was all Philly cops. And you have to keep in mind that the stadiums where this took place are about 4 miles from downtown. So there were protests downtown at City Hall every day. So they had to have a police presence there as well as at the stadiums.
Well, now information is starting to trickle in about the debates.
Yes.
And we actually talked about this a few weeks ago when they announced when the first debate would be. And it was up against a Monday Night Football game.
Yep.
So apparently, and Trump is claiming this is totally because of Hillary's camp, they're going to do everything they can, like they did with Bernie, to bury these debates.
Yes.
Which I don't think is possible, even if it's Monday Night Football.
Right, but they're being such weasels about this and saying,
right.
"Oh, there was a, I love Wonkat," and they have a headline this morning: Donald Trump's debate prep strategy mostly involves prepping to weasel out of debating, which is hysterical.
Right.
They're trying to put forward this idea that Donald Trump is afraid to debate Hillary Clinton. What a joke.
I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump would be happy to debate Hillary Clinton about 30 times between now and November.
Absolutely. So, they're saying that because Trump tweeted we're up against 2 NFL football games and it's ridiculous, that this is his attempt to weasel out of it. It's just like, no. And then so they go on to say that, it's a nonpartisan group called the Commission on Presidential Debates. BS, it's nonpartisan.
Right.
BS. Our friend Pat Goodell was saying this on Fox last night. It's nonsense. He said it's totally, that whole commission is stacked with Democrats. So, of course, they want to bury these debates. And then they're trying to say, they picked this debate. They tried to avoid games, but it's impossible. Excuse me. Fingers, are there football games on Tuesdays and Wednesdays?
No.
Exactly. So there you go right there, guys. You didn't need the schedule to come out because according to Wonkat, they're saying this schedule was made last year, which I don't believe.
But even if it were, look, it is possible that a bunch of leftists have no idea when the NFL plays their games. That wouldn't surprise me, actually.
I think people that don't even pay attention to football, like myself, know that there's such a thing as Monday Night Football.
Well, there's Monday Night Football, and now there's Thursday Night Football, and there's Sunday Night Football. And I'm sure that there are a lot of leftists that are like, there's a sportsy event. They're going to be sporting the sports on sports night and have no clue about the other nights. But you think they would ask one of their friends if they really truly cared about how many people are going to watch these debates. Would be like, is there?
Well, they're dealing with the network people, right? So the network
Right.
people know when football is.
Right.
So there's no excuse. I know that they don't like the sporties.
Football's so angry. It's so violent.
It is. So it's nonsense.
Masculinity on display. It's terrible.
So
It really should be outlawed.
according to Wonkat, the Commission on Presidential Debates has made it clear they won't reschedule the debates, which I don't believe for a second. You're going to see these debates get rescheduled.
Yeah.
They're going to be moved to Tuesdays or Wednesdays. And they could also move them to Saturdays because Saturdays is college football, which is big, but not as big as the NFL.
You're not going to have a lot of, you'll see some regional games that will, pull an audience
if
away.
there's like, USC versus Notre Dame.
Right.
That's a big game that could draw a lot of an audience. But, I mean, hey, here's a wild idea. Move them up before football season. Why can't we start debating in August?
Yeah.
Then you only have to compete with baseball. And regular season baseball is not pulling the kind of numbers that regular season football does.
The people who are going to support Hillary at this point, they're entrenched. The people who are going to support Donald Trump are entrenched. And then you've got the never Trumpers, and you've got the people that are going to possibly vote for Jill Stein instead of Hillary on the left. But the great undecided, whatever percentage of the electorate that is, if it's 10%, 20%, whatever we're talking about, I just get a sense from what I'm hearing from people who are seasoned veterans regarding elections, these people aren't going to make really a final decision until the last few days.
Sure.
So will it matter if a debate's in August or not? I was really cracking up at some of the analysis of these conventions. I would see people that apparently have never paid attention to politics in their lifetimes, and now all of a sudden consider themselves political pundits. Mm-hmm. They're saying, this just won the election for Hillary Clinton. This was a huge night for Hillary. This is where it's like, wait a minute. Can anyone, other than in maybe 68, can we point to conventions and say that's what won it for their candidate?
No.
It's ridiculous.
It's silly. And he beat her in ratings.
Yes.
By over 2 million, I believe. No, it's a joke. They're going to do whatever they can to make her seem popular and human. And that's a high bar.
It's so strange. I didn't see much of her speech. I saw a little bit of it. And it reminded me, and I know I'm dating myself here, and it drives you nuts that, when conservatives reference something regarding pop culture, it's probably 20 to 30 years old. Mm-hmm. But she sounded like the Martian from Mars Attacks.
Okay.
It's just, like, how can anyone listen to this?
She's not charismatic. She learned nothing from Bill. Her personality doesn't lend itself to these kind of things.
No, she's trying to be like this warm grandma, and nobody's buying that.
No, not for a second.
But these crazy facial tics she has, these expressions. A couple of months ago, she was walking through a crowd, and she had a Starbucks in her hand, and a reporter surprised her, and she looked like she was having a seizure.
Yeah, I love that that's floating around as a seizure. I think that was her trying to be funny.
Yes.
But she doesn't know how to do that. That program hasn't fully uploaded into her brain just yet.
But what's really hysterical about that clip, to me, it's not her weird reaction to the reporter's question. You're right. She's trying to be goofy. She's trying to be folksy, Tracy. That's what she's trying to be.
Yeah.
She's trying to be folksy. She's trying to be a person of the people.
She is our champion after all.
That's right. But there's another angle of that whole exchange between her and the reporters there. And the reporters are looking at her. It's like God walked into the room, if they believed in God.
Yeah.
I mean, the look of awe and they're laughing at her like, oh, she's just being goofy, where everyone else is, who if you're not a fan of Hillary Clinton, is thinking, oh my God, she's having a fit.
Yes.
She's having a spell.
Well, she does have that thing where she falls down.
That's right.
But
the look of awe in these reporters' eyes, it was just disgusting. If I can find that clip, I'll put it up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Enough Already Podcast. It's just sickening to see these they're supposed to be down the middle, nonpartisan, and you can tell they're like, oh, I hope she wins.
Oh yeah, I mean they're in the bag at this point. That's why you're not seeing the reports on WikiLeaks. That's why they didn't have any. The only camera crews from networks that I saw in the mix outside with the protesters were Fox and Fox Business.
Jeez.
I saw Rick Leventhal in there, and I don't remember the guy's name from Fox Business, but I do know on the one night that I didn't go down Tuesday, regular Fox was carrying the inside of the convention, and Fox Business was outside on the streets talking to people. But you didn't see that juxtaposition. Believe me, if there had been protesters out in the streets demanding Trump's head, you would have seen a split screen on all the major networks.
Absolutely. I don't know how anyone can honestly look at her speech and say it was a good speech and it was the convention unified the Democratic Party. It was a lousy speech. She cannot give a speech. God bless her. It's terrible. It was terrible. She's terrible.
Yes. But she's the chosen one, and that glass ceiling broke.
Oh, good God.
That was so creepy. I don't know if you saw that clip. That was from Wednesday night, was it? Where I sent that to you, and I said, oh, my God, this is just straight out of 1984. And other people made the comparison to the Wizard of Oz reveal. Like, it was just poorly stage managed.
To me, it looked like Monty Burns in drag.
Yes, greetings, Earthlings.
I thought for sure her first line was going to be, Smithers, release the hounds. Oh, what a shit. And we have 97 days, 96 days. I don't know what the count is right now.
Something
to go.
90s, yeah.
So my question to you, Tracy Connors.
Mm-hmm.
We either have to, and I unfortunately I have a day job and I'm running out of vacation time, but if we could somehow pull off enough already broadcast near a debate, or have some sort of election night coverage somewhere, whether it's a Trump Tower in New York or
election night. I want to be somewhere in Idaho or Montana.
You think all shit's gonna hit the fan?
Gonna break loose. Absolutely. And I think it was Tucker Carlson did an interview with Alex Jones during the DNC where he was saying that I don't think people have given this much thought, and I hadn't really. Like, I figure when Trump wins, the left is going to go nuts. Like, I do think we'll see rioting in every major city, but then the ongoing riot will be like, this is illegitimate. He's not our president. We're not going to put up with this. That kind of stuff. I think the tumult you're going to see is going to start driving the conscious uncoupling of America, because they will look at how they fight. We've always talked about that. The Democrats have no shame. There's no theatrical length to which they will not go to win. And so if they lose, it's going to be horrible. And they've convinced people, and he said this, Tucker said, they've pounded into people's heads that Donald Trump is Hitler. So what length would you go to stop Hitler? You've pretty much justified anything.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, but this is why I don't want to be near any major city on election night.
So you're saying I should diversify my portfolio with canned goods?
Yes, canned goods,
bottled water,
and gold. And get to some island somewhere.
Wow. Yeah. I would love to disagree with you, Tracy, but it will be a 4-year shit show if he becomes president of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, even between election day and inauguration day, you've got close to 3 months. Who knows what they're going to try to do? And you know what I was thinking too yesterday? Remember how it was such an emergency that we filled that Supreme Court vacancy?
Yeah.
That's gone away. But if this goes to the Supreme Court, you've got 4-4 split. What the hell happens then?
Anarchy.
Well, the good kind or the commie kind?
The commie kind.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's why I'm getting the hell out. Who's got an island that has an extra bedroom on it that I can just go chill on? I mean, Oprah, she's on Fisher Island, she's not the only one, but. Hey, Opes, can you take me in for a weekend, please?
Oh, Michael Walsh. We can hit him up.
Yes. Can we bunker down in Ireland with you, Mr. Walsh? He would probably be understanding.
Yes.
I mean, he's one of the people that's seen this coming for a long time and understands how dangerous the left can be when they don't get their way. And I do think it's a legitimate concern that Tucker raises, saying, hey, you know what? They've successfully painted him as Hitler. Like, the woman that I interacted with on the train is not some mouth-breathing dummy. She's an academic or some sort of professional that has at least a BA, if not an MBA or a PhD for all I know. And she's sitting here telling me that Trump is Hitler.
Well, you hear that from people on the right, the never Trumpers. You'll hear people say that he's Hitler.
Oh, it's insane. It's like, did you miss all that history where he had like an actual political ideology? He's another one that went to jail. And Trump doesn't have any of that. So either Trump is a fucking moron that's just babbling his way through this thing, or he's some Machiavellian genius, Hitler type. But the parallels they draw to Hitler are so funny. It's like, well, Hitler wanted, he drew buildings and stuff like that. He designed buildings. Did you know this figure?
Well, that's what they did with Bush.
Yes.
Bush was a knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing moron who outsmarted the entire Democratic Party and conned them into going into Iraq.
Yep. Yeah, that's the only reason.
It's amazing.
I don't know how you can hold points that are that contradictory in your brain. I really don't. There is no introspection. There is no, let's look at my premises here.
Well, I still can't get it through my head. And this goes back earlier to what I was talking about as far as I'm jealous of the low information voter. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you can vote for Bill Clinton in 96, then vote for George W. Bush in 2000, then say, I voted for Bush again in 2004, but then I voted for Obama in 2008. I don't understand how you can just jump back and forth between political parties like that. And it's so much of this is based on emotion.
Yes.
And just, personality. Mm-hmm. And that's mind blowing to me. But the left is like that in a lot of ways, too, where if you look at, say, evolution.
What's that? I'm not familiar.
It's they don't care what the state of the economy is. Mm-hmm. They don't care what the job market's like. They don't care about our foreign policy to a certain extent, as long as we're not, bombing everybody. If we're apologizing to the world, that's fine too.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, we're bombing a hell of a lot more people today than we were when Bush left office.
True. That's true. But my point being that if the president doesn't believe in God, mm-hmm. that the priorities are just so screwed up. Well, at least he believes in evolution.
Right.
Forget that everything else is going to hell. At least he believes in evolution.
Well,
it's like, are you out of your fucking mind? If we could get a president of the United States that would privatize Social Security, mm-hmm. privatize Medicare, mm-hmm. give us the fair tax, that president of the United States could pray to a picture of you every night. I wouldn't give a shit.
Right. No, the two have nothing to do with each other. But to them, it's the end all be all. And I've already seen the articles floating around about Pence yeah. and the religious, nutbaggery of all that. So
stunning.
It's ridiculous. And they're floating around, Pence has said that he's going to make sure Roe v. Wade gets overturned. Like, we're here again with this nonsense. It's amazing because through the primary season, everybody on the right was saying that Trump is too pro-choice.
Right.
And he's just a Johnny-come-lately to the whole pro-life movement. But to think that a president can just walk in and be like, by the way, I'm just executive ordering Roe v. Wade. Done. See you later. Bye. It shows you that they have no understanding of how our system works.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you saw it. They had Cecile Richards sitting in the presidential box, and they gave her a speaking slot.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah. She was up there night one, I think, with Bill. And it's just grotesque because I'm pro-choice to a certain extent. I think you've got 3 months to make a decision. But I do think the entire thing is barbaric and kind of gross and that you're a murderer. And I don't think it should be celebrated on a national stage. And it's gotten to the point where it is by them. And we can't even have a serious discussion about the health implications involved.
It's a badge of honor to have an abortion with some of these people.
Well, it is. Well, I think I've told you about this, that Netroots conference that was going on when we were in Rhode Island. That I went there and I was with Ann Sirach, who was with Legal Insurrection at the time. And she split off with some of the other people that were with us, and she's the only one that I remember being there, but Elizabeth Warren was speaking, and there was a whole abortion lunch thing. So I don't know if Planned Parenthood sponsored it or NARAL or whatever, but I was just wandering around the booths and asking for free stuff. And she came out of there just pale as can be, and looking really distraught. And I said, what happened in there? And they asked for everybody that had an abortion to please stand up so they could give them a round of applause. I was like, that's really grotesque.
Well, it happened at the DNC. One speaker got up and shouted that she had an abortion, and she got a huge ovation. Yeah,
you're not a hero for doing that.
No, I agree with you. I'm pro-choice to a certain extent too, but and I think you need to change people's hearts. You can't legislate this out of society.
Correct.
But it's nothing to celebrate.
Yeah, I think we need to be honest about it. And your likelihood of getting cervical or breast cancer after having an abortion doubles or triples. I mean, it's not safe, healthy alternative to having a child.
I'm trying to get the woman's name that got up. She's the president of the National Abortion Rights Action League.
Yeah, NARAL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't find her name right now. She got up and she said at the convention that she had had an abortion, and people
cheered her.
Yeah,
and I've had friends that have had them, and I've been supportive through the whole thing. I'm not saying nasty stuff. I know it's a difficult decision to make, but I've spoken to them about this since then, and none of them are saying I should be recognized as a hero for doing what I did. And they're put off by the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't mean to sound like I'm judging this woman as far as the decision that she made. That's her decision, and she needs to figure out a way to live with that decision and move forward. But getting up in front of 15,000 people and making that announcement, it's bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's some death cult stuff.
Yeah.
We believe in evolution, but we're going to stop the evolutionary process and cheer about it.
Is there anything else from the convention that we haven't talked about that we should?
I can't really think of much. I'm interested to hear what Ash thinks, because I believe she was in the safety of the air-conditioned convention center for most of the week.
She was. I tried to get her to come on today with us, and she's actually speaking at a conference right now.
Yeah.
As we speak.
And she attended a bunch of the conferences, a bunch of the breakfasts and events that were going on concurrently to the DNC. So maybe we can do a follow-up with her as a little supplemental later in the week and get her to.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because she does have the opposite experience to me.
Tracy, I'm going to Red State.
Have fun.
It's in Denver.
Will you please laugh in Leon Wolf's face for me? Just briefly. Because if you remember our exchange at CPAC, I had said to him, what are you going to do when Trump wins the nomination? Because he was saying, we're going to have the nominee. Even if it's Trump, he'll never get it. Really?
I don't know if I'm actually going. I have not heard anything regarding credentials, so I may just
go
to Denver and go to the Walmart of pot downtown.
There you go.
I have to see it.
I know.
You know, I'm not much of a pot guy. But I mean, in college, I admit I inhaled.
Look at you.
But this place supposedly is a 6,000 square foot pot store.
Sure. It's exciting.
In downtown Denver.
Yeah, I mean, going to Amsterdam was a thrill to be able to just be like, wow, this is crazy. I'm sitting out on the street smoking a joint, watching 8 cops come tow a car.
But the thing is, in Denver, I don't think you're not allowed to smoke it in public.
Right.
And I'm sure that once I check into my hotel room, there will probably be signs with joints with a circle and a slash through it.
I would imagine so. And I know that there were some workarounds for it that were going on, like a private club that you could pay $5 to be a member of, and then you have a place to go. But the only one of those I knew about got shut down.
So even if I were to buy something, I don't know if I could actually.
Well, you could get the edibles. You just have to be really careful with those.
Yeah, I'm spooked by that. I mean, if I could take an edible actually home with me.
So you'd have a safe space?
Yeah, because who the hell knows? I mean, look what happened to Maureen Dowd.
Yeah.
Brainiac ate the whole brownie.
Well, I mean, you think that it comes in a single serving size. You don't think, oh, hey, I should subdivide this brownie. Like, why didn't somebody do that for me? But I do think one of the problems comes from the fact that you expect it to work faster than it does, so people eat more.
Yeah.
Thinking like, oh, I didn't get enough, when it's like, no, you should probably wait an hour before you decide if you got enough or not.
Well, yeah, they have the brownies, the cookies. They have Ricola, I think. Mm-hmm. They have like pot lozenges.
They also have beverages.
Oh, they have beverages.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would think that would hit you faster than an edible.
I would think so too, but they also might have something like liquid that goes on a vape pen.
Yeah,
that might be your best bet. Well, what you do is get there and then get on Periscope and ask for crowdsource what you should buy. What'll be the safest?
If I were to partake.
Yes.
looked at, I did an internet search for people trying to take stuff back with them from Colorado.
Oh, apparently they have boxes at the
And-
airport designated like, here, you can drop your weed here. Like, don't try to travel with it. Just leave it in the box.
I've heard that since this has taken place, when did pot become legal in Colorado? Was it 2014?
I want to say it was 2015 that they voted for it in 2014, and then they had to set up the tax structure and the regulatory structure. So it took a little while to come online.
But I've heard only 3 or 4 people have been cited for trying to take it out of the state through the airport. Mm-hmm. There's no way. There's no way they're going to catch that.
No, especially if you have edibles.
Yeah. Or if you have the
liquid,
the e-cig juice.
Yeah.
So.
No, and it's just like a waste of time for them and resources. So
yeah.
My understanding is if you get caught with it, they just say, "Hey, we're taking that from you. Thanks."
I'm still of the opinion that marijuana will be legal in all 50 states before I can buy a freaking 6-pack of beer on a Sunday in Indiana.
Oh, I have no doubt about that.
So I'm going to Denver in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I've talked to a few people who will be in Denver for Red State who aren't going to the conference.
Interesting.
And I don't know if it's the same thing with them as it is with me, where I'm not going to pay for the privilege of covering Red State.
Right.
And this is nothing against the Red State people. I feel that way about any conference.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go there,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I'm going to go there and I'm going to cover your conference, I'm not going to pay to get in.
Right.
Don't mean to sound like a snob, but we've kind of been spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of it, media normally doesn't pay to get into an event to cover it. So I'm not about to start. I'm not going to pay $200 to go.
Not attend a single panel.
Right. So I don't know if it's because of credentialing, but I've talked to quite a few people who are going to be in Denver who are not planning on going to the conference. And I don't know if it's because of the fact that they haven't been credentialed, because I've talked to a couple people who haven't, or if it's because they know what Red State is going to be and they don't want to be a part of it.
Do you have to sign the Never Trump pledge to get credentialed?
I don't know, but and this is the case for whether it would be a 3-day Never Trump event or 3-day, oh my God, Trump is the Messiah, and if you have any illness, Trump could cure it conference. I wouldn't want to be a part of that either. It's just, oh God, what a downer it's going to be to hear 3 days of speaker after speaker after speaker telling everyone that everything is horrible.
Yeah.
And why can't we have our party back? Can't we go back to the good old days of Mitch McConnell calling the shots?
So you're saying it's going to be dark?
Yes, it's going to be dark. It's going to be dark. The keynote speaker at Red State is Glenn Beck.
Oh my God! So it is going to be dark.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll bring out his props again.
Of course.
He all of a sudden he's Carrot Top. He comes out and he's got like 20 different props that he'll show people. God bless. I get it.
It's a little bit bizarre to have Red State keynoted by Glenn Beck.
Yeah, I mean, I get not wanting to be on board with the dude. I understand. I struggle with it every day. Like, I can't vote for him. Oh yeah, who are you going to vote for? Well, I want to vote for Gary Johnson. Oh, God damn it. He's talking
He's
again.
making it impossible to vote for him, too. No, it's infuriating. And I ran into Austin Peterson, who gave him a decent run for his money.
Yeah.
At Freedom Fest. And I think he got shafted. And I think he would have been a much better representative for the Libertarian Party because he actually understands the principles. And just having a basic understanding of the principles, which are pretty simple. The non-aggression principle is easy for anybody to understand. And if it's a question of should the government do X, the answer is 99% of the time, no.
No.
That's it. Gary Johnson can't even get that.
No. But the non-aggression principle, this is something that some libertarians just take to the extreme.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the philosophical debates about it, like if you're falling out of the air, can you grab onto somebody's railing on their house, or is that a violation of their property rights? I mean, they'll take it that far, but that doesn't need to be introduced into the presidential election. It's just very simply like, we will not initiate force against peaceful people.
I mean, it even goes back to, we've had this discussion about litmus tests. Arguing that the guy dancing naked or damn near naked at the convention, nobody should intervene. He's not hurting anyone. Well, I get that he's not physically harming anyone, but if you want to be taken seriously as a party, maybe you should have someone grab him. Maybe hire Corey Lewandowski to come over there and grab him and take him off the stage. I don't know.
No, I agree. And just, I don't know. All he has to do is get to 5%, and then next time around, the Libertarian Party actually is able to get public funding.
Which is weird. Will they take it?
I don't know. And I mean, this is an argument that idiot Cenk Unger, who had a nice face-off with Alex Jones at the RNC. Cenk is the founder and the leader of the Young Turks, and he's an insufferable idiot. And I just watched, he had debated Dinesh D'Souza at Politicon, and I watched it the other night. And the man is the most disingenuous arguer I've ever seen. I mean, he takes it to a new level, but he's got something called the Wolf Pack, and they're all about getting money out of politics. And his answer is just to have public funding of all campaigns, which I hear is, I'm going to be forced to fund Hillary Clinton's campaign. No, thank you. No, thank you. And they got into an argument about why there's so much money in politics. And according to Cenk, it's because of two Supreme Court decisions that were made in the 70s that say corporations are people and therefore have speech rights and all this stuff. That's his contention. That's why there's money in politics. And it's just like, can I get Fingers to call into his show and tell him about Teapot Dome? Could we talk about Tammany Hall? I mean, could we talk about the building of the railroads in the 19th century? No. The problem is not the favor seekers, it's the favor givers. It's the fact that they have the ability to do these things, that politicians can grant you special favors if you cough up the cash. That's where the problem comes from. So if you take away their power, then there's no reason to inject so much money into politics.
Yeah.
But no. No, it's because the Supreme Court said that corporations are people. I mean, these are the deep thoughts of that shallow thinker. Moron.
It's just chilling to me how freely the left admits that they want to restrict free speech in this country. And people just nod, go along with it. I don't want anyone from Washington to be able to have the power to tell a group of people that they can't produce an ad and put it out there for people to see 60 days out of an election.
Yeah. Well,
that's insane.
I didn't realize it, and I can't remember who I heard saying it, so I apologize for not being able to give credit. But they said when Schwarzenegger was running for governor of California, they weren't allowed to show any of his movies on television 60 days out.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
That's getting the money out of politics, not being able to put Kindergarten Cop on TV 60 days out of an election.
It's not a tumor. Yep. We're cleaning up the corruption, guys.
See, now we're doing something.
You can't watch Twins.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, no one should watch Twins.
Hey, that's a great movie. Oh, I love it.
It's just because your boy Danny DeVito is in it.
I do love DeVito, even though his politics are anathema to me, but he's a fun guy.
All right. Now, apparently no Ash Scow this week because she's out on assignment.
She is, but we will try to reconvene with her maybe later this week.
Yes, maybe we'll
DNC
do a little
take.
We'll do a Enough Already podcast bite.
There you go.
And then we need to start bringing some more guests back to the show.
Absolutely.
So,
well, I mean, I'd love to have Cadell back again, but it's like 3 times already, Pat. I don't know. I mean, he does have the greatest insights into these things, I truly believe, and he just was at both conventions. So
yeah, it's really hard because you don't want to keep going back to the well, but at the same time, we want to bring in some of the best people in media for their analysis. And let's face it, Pat's one of the best.
Absolutely.
So, and then, we haven't had, and we haven't had Carol Roth on in a while. Monica hasn't been on since the beginning of the show. So Monica Crowley. So maybe we need to start bringing these people back.
We're going to have to.
Yeah. Okay. That's all for this week. By the way, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, the TuneIn app. Am I missing anything, Tracy?
I think that's all.
And of course, the Facebook page is facebook.com/EnoughAlreadyPodcast. And we have a website, EnoughAlreadyPodcast.com. While you're on iTunes, why don't you go ahead and leave us a rating? 5 stars. Tracy, it goes up to 5 stars, doesn't it?
I do believe 5's the limit.
5's the limit. How about a 5-star review?
And who is it that does our music again, Fingers?
Music for the Enough Already podcast is provided courtesy of EnoughAlreadyPodcast.com. No, of course not. We don't do our own music. It's YoPaulyMusic.com.
Yo, Pauly.
Paul Cruteau does a great job. He's got a lot of music out there on the SoundCloud.
Yes.
You can also find him at Yo Pauly Music over on SoundCloud. So if you're a podcaster or someone who needs music and you don't want to use the licensed music, if you wanted Nickelback or Third Eye Blind, the people on the right, they love Third Eye Blind, Tracy Connors.
Yes. Adore that.
And they aren't available. Go to Yo Pauly Music. But the difference is Yo Pauly Music, it's actually good music.
Yeah, and he's got quite a variety. He's got some stuff that sounds like country, some hip-hop sounding stuff. It's really good.
Yeah, so check that out. Well, look for us to maybe do something with Ash Scow later in the week. If not, we'll be back next week.